Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in truly across the continent for a really exciting other Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. For many of you, it's your first time joining us, if not this year, then ever, in which case, welcome to the show. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world, and everything we do goes to YouTube. So if you want to check out programs from yesterday or like 3.5 years ago, you can go right there and do that with over 3,500 broadcasts featuring some of the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. We are off to the races this school year. This is, I think, our 15th broadcast already. We've had people that have walked to the South Pole. We've had people that have rowed across the Atlantic Ocean. We have featured some of the coolest scientists in the world. Just earlier today, we had marine plastics with Taylor Madeline and the seaweed revolution with Vincent DeMito live in New York. So it's been a really exciting day. But it's especially exciting right now because we are continuing our epic series in conjunction with our friends at OceanWise. All week long, every single day at 1 Eastern, we are doing an awesome series featuring all sorts of stories from around the oceans of the world. We started off on Monday with Arctic Adventures. Yesterday, we talked about whales. We've got 2 more coming the next 2 days. But today, with almost 600 of you from around the world, we are talking about sea otters, urchins, kelp, one of the coolest habitats on the Pacific coast and around the world, and one of the most amazing stories in nature and conservation on this planet. So, without further ado, I'm going to zip my lip. I'm going to turn you over to Mal, our indomitable educator from OceanWise. Thank you so much for joining us again, and can't wait to learn about kelp.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. As Jesse mentioned, my name is Mala. I use she and her pronouns, and I am located in Toronto, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of many different nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat people. This land is also home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And before getting the program started, I wanted to make sure that I was acknowledging the land that I'm coming to you all from and, extending my honor or my thanks to these communities who have been here since time immemorial, taking care of our wonderful land, sea, and sky. If this is your first time joining with us, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed today's program. And if you're returning, welcome back. You should know how this kind of goes. I'll chat for around 20 minutes, hopefully telling you something you don't already know, and we'll test some knowledge with Kahoot later, which Jesse dropped in the chat earlier. So feel free to check that out as well. My friends, I am so excited to be here today. I am unfortunately coming down with a cold, so if I'm sniffling a little bit, I apologize, but thank you all for your patience and your understanding. 2 things about me. I absolutely love being an educator. I get to talk to people all around the world about what I love most, which is ocean conservation. And I get to talk about really, really cool animals. Sometimes I get to talk about 2 of my favorite animals, which are whale sharks and nudibranchs. Today, we're going to be talking about different animals, though. We're going to be talking about animals that live inside of our kelp forest. But before we do, I want to know a little bit more about you folks tuning in. I would love to know what ocean animal you would be if you were an ocean animal.
So the only correct answer here is the shark because sharks are the best. But if you choose any of the others, that's totally fine too. It's your call, whatever you want to do. And I will note again, if you're on StreamYard, if you're on YouTube, you can share in the chat. We're looking for all those answers. So do join us because we are playing along with lots of interactive bits throughout the day. We've got a whole bunch: dolphin, seahorse, shark. We got things that aren't even on the screen. Oh, they've gone mad.
They're getting creative. But I see Avoca West, I know you have been joining us for a couple of days, and you've mentioned that a sea otter is a personal favorite of your class. So today we'll be talking about sea otters. So I hope you're just as excited as I am to dive in and talk about these animals. I would probably be like a jellyfish or a nudibranch because a lot of them have something called bioluminescence, so they can glow in the dark. And I want to glow in the dark. I want to have cool patterns and, like cool colors and stuff and glow in the dark. I think that's pretty cool. So I'd probably be one of those guys. Thank you all for sharing. This is so exciting. And you can keep messaging me. I'm seeing everything. So if you want to keep letting me know what animal you would be, feel free to keep sending it on in. All right, my friends. So as Jesse mentioned, I work for an organization called OceanWise, and OceanWise is focused on bringing education and ocean conservation awareness around the world and into your classrooms. We are focused on targeting 3 major issues that the ocean is facing right now, and they would include ocean pollution, overfishing, and climate change. We do this with the help of all of these other teams, like our whales team, our plastics team, our sea forestation team, that are all working incredibly hard to collect data. And then folks like myself, educators, will come into your classrooms and teach you a little bit about the work that we're doing and also what our ocean is going through. Ocean-Wise is working really, really hard to do what they can to try and conserve the world's ocean and bring its health back up. Unfortunately, right now, the ocean is going through a variety of threats. And the ocean is really, really important to us. It's incredibly diverse. It's extremely beautiful. We use it as a source of water, food, medicine. It inspires culture, and it produces most of the oxygen that we breathe as well. Around 3 billion people in the world rely on the ocean as their primary source of food, and over 250 million people rely on it for their jobs. And the ocean being at threat or threatened by many different things can be really, really dangerous, not only for the environment, the animals, the plants that are involved, but also for the people that rely on the ocean for their food and for their jobs. Now, my friends, the ocean is really, really important because it gives us something really important, and that is oxygen. One of the main things that we as humans need in order to survive is oxygen. And oftentimes we think about, where we get it from. We think about trees and forests that grow on land. But what if I told you that we actually have underwater forests in the ocean that are responsible for producing around 50% of the oxygen that we breathe? My friends, it would be these underwater forests that we call kelp forests. And these ecosystems are incredibly rich in diversity, and they play a very, very important role in the ocean and even land health. So today, I am presenting to you sea otters, urchins, and kelp from kelp. We're going to explore many different things about kelp forests and these ecosystems. We're going to learn about why kelp is important, how forests support biodiversity, some really cool animals and their adaptations, some threats that kelp forests are facing, and then we're going to come up with some solutions. But before we do, I'm going to give you a brief introduction on kelp, and then we're going to test your knowledge on how much you know about kelp. So, my friends, kelp forests are located in the uppermost zone of the ocean, which is the sunlight zone. This is around 200 meters deep, and this is where we're going to know the most about the ocean, and we're going to recognize the most animals. This is where sea turtles live, fish live, whales, jellyfish, sharks. A lot of kelp and coral reefs grow in this region as well. This might be the area that you all go visit the beach. You might go snorkeling. You might go boating, fishing. This is going to be that area of the ocean. And if we take a closer look, we can actually see how exactly kelp grows. So let's click on this little magnifying glass. All right, so kelp grows the same way that plants on land do. It needs the sun in order to grow. It's going to collect that sunlight. It's going to trap carbon dioxide in itself. It's going to convert the sunlight into, sugar and protein and energy and output oxygen for us to breathe. And kelp is going to grow and kind of become in habitat. Now it's time to test your knowledge. So I would like everybody in their classrooms to show us a thumbs up or a thumbs down for true or false, or you can message us in the chat. And I'm sure Jesse will call on a couple of you as well to tell us what you're thinking. But let's get started off with our first question here. True or false, kelp hold on to the ocean floor with their roots? What do we think?
What do we think? And again, chime in the chat. It's going to be really easy with so many of you to do it that way. True is our first thing coming in. We've got true on YouTube. We've got yes, yes, yes. Everybody says yes. What do you think, Mala?
Oh, well, you're definitely on the right track. We're starting off with a bang. I got confused. This one is actually false, my friends. I know a lot of times we think kelp are plants, but these guys actually don't have roots. So this one would be false. They use something called a holdfast to hold onto the ocean floor. I'm sorry, I got a little bit confused there. I was looking at the next question, which I gave away now. But kelp use something called a holdfast to hold onto different things like rocks and hard surfaces to stay onto the ground. So they have kind of like a suction cup at the bottom of their stem. So they're not going to use roots. All right, I kind of gave this question away, but kelp is a type of plant. Is this true or false?
Dun, dun, dun. All right. Well, as you said, you sort of gave it away. So you've got quite a few trues coming in. True, true, true. Yes, yes, yes. What do we think?
Oh, well, even though I gave it away, I didn't give it away that much because it is false. Kelp is not a type of plant. We actually call it a type of algae. It's this weird in between of both plant and animal. We can't fully classify it as a plant because it doesn't have roots, and plants need roots in order to grow. That's why we call it an algae. And we actually have three kinds of seaweed. We have green, red, and brown seaweed that grow across the coast of even British Columbia here. We grow a lot of it. All right, next question. Kelp grows over 30 centimeters a day. Do we think kelp could grow over a foot a day? Think about how tall you folks are at your age. Imagine how fast that would be.
It'd be so fun. I'd be at my height in like less than a week. It would be crazy. I'd be like 12, I'd be 13 feet by next week. Surely this can't be true, can it? Let's see. True. Oh, true and false mix. We've got some false for this one. We're mixing it up. And you didn't give it away or not give it away at all this time.
I didn't give it away this time.
A lot of false.
A lot of false. Okay. I feel like I maybe threw you folks off with the first couple questions. Now I see some people guessing, oh, it's maybe both. My friends, this one is definitely true. Kelp grows very, very fast in the ocean, which is what makes it so sustainable, is that even if we harvest it, it'll grow back really, really quickly if the conditions are right. So it makes it really, really powerful in the ocean. It's not like coral reefs or other organisms that might take a really, really long time to grow. Kelp will grow over 30 centimeters, over a foot a day easily if they're in healthy conditions. All right, next question here. True or false? Kelp forests cover 2 times more ocean than reefs. What do we think?
Ooh, what do we think? Now, reefs aren't as common in the ocean as a lot of us might think. They actually make a very small percentage of the ocean in the world. We've done some amazing coral reef programs before, with Oceanwise for that matter. So we got a bit of false. We got we can't decide. We got true. We're mixed up again. We don't know. That's what this Kelp program is all about, is to learn this amazing thing.
You know what? The answers are all over the board, but you know what? That gets me excited because that means hopefully we're all going to be learning something that we didn't know before. My friends, the answer for this one is false. And that is because there's actually way more kelp than there is coral reefs. Kelp forests cover 5 times more ocean than coral reefs do. They can actually be found on almost every single continent all around the world. So kelp is really, really important. It grows really, really fast, and we can find it all around the world as well. All right, next question. Kelp forests in certain locations are declining 2 times as fast as coral reefs. What do we think? True or false?
We also know a few interesting conservation stories over the course of this week. I encourage you to go back to our whale program yesterday too on YouTube. There's some neat stuff in there as well. What is our thought on conservation of kelp forests? Are we losing them? Are we gaining them? What's the deal? False, true? You've mixed everybody up. This is actually the most equivocation in a Q&A or I've ever seen. So I'm so glad that they don't know anything. It's perfect.
You know what? The other 2 days, I feel like y'all have been so on top of the game. I feel like y'all have known all the answers. I had to challenge you folks this time. So I made it a little bit tougher this time. My friends, the answer for this one is actually true. So not only is there a lot more kelp than there are coral reefs, they're also declining way faster than coral reefs are as well. Kelp covers around 28% of coastlines. That is 5 times more area than coral reefs, but they are declining twice as fast as reefs. And this is because of things like, heat waves, marine heat waves, climate change, pollution. Globally, it's estimated that around 40 to 60% of kelp forests have already disappeared. So they are very, very threatened right now. And we got to make sure that we're doing what we can to protect these ecosystems. All right. Last question here I have. Kelp has been used to sustainably fish for generations. Is this true or false? What do we think?
Let's see what we want to chime in with here. So you might get a sense from how the questions are phrased in some of the answers, but we've got a good mix again. Quite a bit of true, a few false, mostly true for this one.
Mostly true. We're ending off on a great note then. This is absolutely true. Kelp is a really, really important tool for Indigenous communities all around the world. For example, we have reef net fishing, which is this top picture here. This was practiced by the Samish and other Salish groups to harvest salmon. This method would take advantage of tides and kelp-covered rocky reefs, and it's one traditional fishing technique that's lasted a really, really long time, even after colonization. This bottom picture here that we're looking at, that is actually herring spawn on kelp. So herring is a type of fish, and this is their eggs that are all laid on top of kelp. Groups like the Haida in BC use kelp to collect herring roe and snack on it. Pacific herring spawn their eggs on top of kelp. So groups would go and they would harvest this kelp with eggs on it. They would dry it out in the sun, soak it in oolican oil, which is another type of fish that's really important to Indigenous coasts or communities, and then they would consume it. Pacific herring roe remains a really, really important traditional food for Salish Sea First Nations, and they have continued harvesting herring spawn using kelp, which is an incredibly non-invasive and sustainable fishing method. So kelp can be really, really helpful and really, really sustainable when it comes to the ways that we fish. We just got to get creative and maybe, learn from these Indigenous communities and the techniques that they've been using since time immemorial to take care of our ocean and also fish sustainably. All right, now, as I mentioned, kelp covers around 5 times more area than coral reefs do. So they're all around the world, and they're also incredibly biodiverse. There are so many different animals that live inside of kelp forests, and I want to turn it over to you folks at this time. I want to know if you can name any animals that you would find inside of a kelp forest.
Ooh, what do we think? If any of you were in our program earlier with Vincent, we covered a little tiny bit of this, but if you're not, then this will be entirely new to you. Kelp forest creatures. Now, some of them might also be in the name of this program. So otters, fish, urchins. Fantastic. Some of you were reading the bio at the beginning. Anything else you want to chime in with? Let's see. Dun, dun, dun. We'll give it a few more seconds. No one else knows. Otters, fish, and urchins, eels. All good answers. I think we're going to cover quite a bit. So Mala, take us away.
Yeah, so this ecosystem is one of the most biodiverse ecosystems that I've seen. I feel like if mermaids were real, they would definitely live inside of kelp forests. There are so many different types of fish and sharks. There's, octopus can be found there. So many different types of sea stars and different types of kelp as well. There are so many animals that live inside of the kelp forest, but we are going to be talking about sea urchins and sea otters for sure. And we're going to get started off with our prickly little fella. We're going to get started off with sea urchins. So sea urchins are spiky and round animals that can sometimes cause a lot of damage to kelp forests. There are about 950 different species of sea urchin that live on the seabed of every ocean, and they inhabit every depth zone as well. So they can be found in shallow water and in the deep sea. Many people actually really enjoy eating what's inside of them as well. These guys love to crawl along the ocean floor using these tiny little spines and tentacles. We can kind of see these little platforms here. These are their tentacles that they use to kind of move along the ocean floor. And it's a coordinated movement with the spines that stick out, and then they kind of flex them out. It's like a muscle that they use. I actually have a really cool video of a sea urchin crawling along the floor of this tank that we can take a look at. So that's what they kind of look like, just crawling along the ocean floor. I hope it's clear enough. I know I was lagging a little bit the other day. All right. So sea urchins live inside a kelp forest, and one thing that they like to do is eat kelp. So sea urchins love to eat kelp, but they're also a really important animal because other animals like to eat them as well. One animal that loves to eat them is this parrotfish. So this is a video of a parrotfish using its very, very hard beak to crunch through its hard shell and get all the good stuff inside. And there's another really, really important animal in the kelp forest that absolutely loves eating sea urchins, and it is the sea otter. Sea otters love to eat sea urchins, and kelp forests are actually their habitat. They use kelp for many different things. Mother sea otters will oftentimes wrap their babies inside of kelp that's floating on the surface of the ocean, so that they can stay put and float and not drift away into the ocean while they leave them unsupervised to go collect some sea urchins to feed on. Sea otters, a really fun, interesting fact about them is that they actually have the thickest fur in the animal kingdom. Most humans have around 100,000 hairs on their body, give or take, but sea otters will have anywhere between 500,000 and a million hairs per square inch of their hair, meaning that, they have an incredible amount of hair, almost 10 times the amount of hair on their body that we have on our head. And it's to keep them warm, essentially. This water that kelp forest or kelp grows in can be very, very cold. So they need this fur to keep them warm because they don't have blubber like other animals like seals and whales, things like that. They need this fur to keep them nice, snug, and warm. Now, sea otters absolutely love to eat sea urchins. They can eat a lot of them within a day. Male will eat almost like 10 times its body weight inside of sea urchins, and they like to crack them open and eat all the mushy, yummy stuff inside. In fact, we can actually eat sea urchins as well. Sea urchin is a really, really popular snack around the world. And I want to know if anybody's ever eaten sea urchin before. Raise your hand if you've ever tried it.
I don't think we have any. Oh, maybe one kid in one of the classes. I've never had sea urchin before. That's quite the niche thing.
Jesse, do you think you would ever try sea urchin?
I'm not a big sea creature fan anyway. I like breaded fish. If you give me like a hunk of cod and you like coat it in like a thick inch of breading, I'm all over that thing. Otherwise, you can leave it in the ocean for me.
Sounds good. No problem. Well, sea urchin is very, very yummy and it's a delicacy around the world. It kind of has like this buttery like consistency that people very, very much enjoy. And if you consume sea urchin, you could actually be helping kelp forests because these guys can take over the reef really, really fast, unfortunately. Kelp forests are very, very complex, delicate, and biodiverse systems with so much life. This here is something called a food chain, which is the order in which animals like to eat each other in order to survive. At the bottom, you're going to have microalgae, which is seaweed and stuff. And then you're going to have, some invertebrates, some shrimp, some crabs, some fish, things like that. And then other animals that are going to eat them. At the top of that, you'd probably have like sea otters and killer whales and things like that. But for the sake of this program, I think it's really important to talk about how important balance is in the ocean. Too much of anything is never good. So we need to make sure that we're maintaining balance in the ocean. For example, kelp is the home to both sea urchins and sea otters. Sea otters use kelp as a home, as a nursery. Sea otters will eat sea urchins and sea urchins will eat kelp. So they all rely on each other. But what would happen if there were no more sea otters? My friends, there was a time where sea otters had gone extinct in British Columbia because they had been hunted to extinction for their fur. And that meant there were a lot more sea urchins. If there's way more sea urchins than we can control, they will end up consuming all of the kelp. And that can lead to something that we call a sea urchin barren. It essentially means that all the kelp disappears and sea urchins take over. Sea urchins are the bad guys. Key in conservation, making sure there isn't too much of one thing is going to be very, very important. But now I have a question for you. Obviously, we've talked about how seaweed is important to animals, but how does seaweed help the ocean, and why is it so important? Does anybody have any answers?
Ooh, it's funny. Before earlier today's program, I would have actually had a bit of a hard time answering this question. And so, I can't encourage it as a double feature enough to highlight Vincent's program earlier, but we have oxygen, so oxygenating the water. This is something that a lot of people don't know is what percentage of the oxygen in the world is produced from things in the ocean. It's quite incredible. Seaweed is a home for animals. Yes, it's a habitat for things to live. Great answer. Anyone else want to chime in before we turn it back? Seaweed is food for us, helps the animals. So yeah, food for us, home for animals, oxygen for the water. All great answers, guys.
Great answers. Amazing. My friends, at this time, I would like everybody to close their eyes and take 3 very deep breaths with me. Okay. I'll count us in. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in again. Breathe out again. And one more time, deep breath in and out. My friends, the reason I made us all breathe like that is because 2 out of every 3 breaths that we take is actually from the ocean and from seaweed. So it just goes to show how much oxygen they actually provide. Now, I had a video to show us, but we are running late again. I'm sorry. I have so much cool stuff I want to show you all, so we are going to skip it. But in the video, we're essentially just talking about the different uses of kelp and how important it is. Kelp is really, really beneficial. Like you guys mentioned, it creates habitat, it captures carbon, it removes excess nutrients from the ocean. It's a source of food, all of that stuff. We also use it in a variety of different products. I'm going to show you 3 products here, and I want to see some thumbs up or thumbs down if you think we use it, if we use seaweed in these items. First item here, ice cream. Do we think we use kelp inside of ice cream?
What do we think? Yes, quite a few thumbs up. Many thumbs up. All the thumbs up. Cool.
Thumbs up.
And a big no. A bit of both.
Well, you'd be absolutely correct. We do use seaweed in some brands of ice cream. What about sunscreen?
A few thumbs up, a few thumbs down, more thumbs up, I'd say. We've got, a lot of yeses. Cool. I think we're getting on board.
You would be absolutely correct. And last but not least, toothpaste. Are we brushing our teeth with kelp? What do we think?
I actually only use kelp. I don't even use toothpaste. I just take one of the seaweed and just rub my teeth with it every day. But that's just me. But everyone else is saying yes. So yes is our answer. They're in all the things.
You would be absolutely correct. We definitely do. We use seaweed in a lot of things that might be a little bit surprising, but it's a really, really important resource and ingredient for a lot of different things. My friends, at Ocean Wise, we're actually working super, super hard to grow our own kelp because we recognize that kelp is disappearing around the world. We want to make sure we're doing what we can to grow it back. So we have a team called the Sea Forestation Team that goes into the ocean and grows kelp and creates these habitats. Normally, it starts off like this, pretty empty. We have to test the zone and make sure that it's a good area for kelp to grow in. We then grow these tiny little baby kelps, and we grow them inside of our nursery. We have our very own nursery and lab where we grow tiny little baby kelps. And as they get bigger and older and stronger, we will take them and plant them into the ocean. And eventually they grow into giant kelp forests like this. This is actually a kelp forest that we grew from absolutely nothing. There was nothing here at one point, and we grew it back, and now animals like fish, octopus, crabs, sea stars all have a home. Feel some eco-anxiety at times. Restoration efforts exist and they work, and it takes people like you and scientists and other people around the world to work hard, come together, and make these things possible. Now, I've talked about sea forestation, but what do you think are some things that you can do in your life to help seaweed and help kelp forests? What do we think?
Ooh, let's see. So many questions. I told you you'd be getting a lot of questions, audience. You had to listen to me at the beginning. The all-time record most questions asked in a program of our audience is for the kelp story. Let's see what we think. I know there's a bit of a longer question, so take a second to answer. While you're answering that too, I will note when we're done this before the Q&A, we are going to play our Kahoot together, so I'll pull up the game pin for that on the screen again, and then we're going to go one by one through all our classes for a nice long Q&A period for our next 15 minutes total. So, use less plastic, don't waste water, eat sea urchins. That's an interesting solution. That's actually something that we're starting to do around the world for a lot of things where they're invasive and they're taking over. Minimize speed traffic of boats in coastal areas, which is a great solution for all manner of conservation things. Plant more kelp forests. These are great answers, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, these are amazing answers. Thank you all so much. I have 3 solutions here for us as well from Ocean Wise. One thing is eating, not only eating sea urchins, but eating seaweed as well. If we eat seaweed and it becomes really, really popular, people will want to grow it more to meet the demand. So by making seaweed popular, we can grow more of it and help combat the loss of seaweed across oceans. We can also do what we're doing today, which is just learn and support organizations that are working towards regrowing kelp forests, and we can share the knowledge. So if you learned something new today, feel free to share it with 3 new people in your life so we can keep that conversation going. Remember, my friends, eat sustainable seafood wherever you can. If you're located in Canada, if you ever go to the fish market and you see this Ocean Wise logo, it means that we've done the work and we deem this seafood to be sustainable. So you can be more conscious of what you're kind of consuming and bringing to your table. So if you see this Ocean Wise logo, feel free to buy that sustainable seafood. Thank you all so much for joining in on today's program. I didn't leave a lot of time for Q&A at the end. I'm so sorry, but you can always send us your questions later and I can email them to you as well. Thank you to our partners for allowing us to bring these education programs into your classrooms. And if you enjoyed today's program, feel free to book a class with us at ocean.org/education, where you can have myself or some of my colleagues come in and teach you more about our wonderful ocean. You can also download and install the Commit to Act app, where you can track some of the things that you're doing and see what your impact is on our planet. And you can also build your own e-card as a classroom, which, hint, hint, we might actually do together on Friday's program. So you can build an e-card and send it in so that you can kind of put onto paper the change that you want to see for our ocean. Thank you all so much. That's it for me. I'll pass it back to Jesse.
Well, thank you so much, Mala. That was extraordinary as before, and I'm so excited to dive in with a Q&A in just a minute. We are going to start with that 4-question Kahoot to have some fun together. And for those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is our everlasting respect. So it's always good to win that. We're very picky here. So please do chime in with that. If you just want to yell out the answers in your class, that's totally fine as well. And then we're going to dive in with questions. So one by one, we'll probably get 1 question per class today because there are a lot of you. And then, as Mala said, please do email us at your pants your extra questions on kelp, and we will get them answered for you in the next day or so. So the more the merrier. We love your questions, and I can also pass along some additional great resources. But let's get underway with this and see what our questions are. Hint, hint, some of the questions were covered during the broadcast very specifically. So let's see what we have. 3, 2, 1, and true or false? The sea otter has the densest fur of any mammal. What do we think? We talked about it at the beginning. It was a while back. They look so fuzzy. Like, they really do look like they have the most fur of any mammal. Whether that's true or not, we're going to find out in 8 seconds. So we talked about human body, 100,000 hairs. Sea otter has 1 million per square inch, which is insane. So yes, that is absolutely true. And most of you got that right. Way to go for paying attention to our sea otter section. Hero Bunny has our lead. I hope an otter name wins this one. It's always fun when it matches. All right, question number 2. Kelp can grow how much in 1 day? Let's see. A barely detectable amount, 1.5 feet, 1 inch, or 25 feet in 1 day. What do we think? I've thrown you off maybe in both possible directions. We'll see what we find out together. But this is quite amazing. I must say, like, for me as a biologist, this is still one of the most astonishing facts to me that, like, we have, in perfect conditions, observed it growing 1.5 feet a day, which is crazy. Like, it's absolutely, it's so much. And most of you got this right. Fantastic. Speedy Chicken takes our lead. We completely mess up the leaderboard. All right. Sea urchins are most related to which creature? We did not cover this. I just wanted to have some fun with you. Hedgehog, thistles, starfish, or jellyfish? So they belong to a group called the echinoderms. They're a strange group. They have something called radial symmetry. So, like, we're the same on our left and right side. Sea urchins are the same in every direction. And so starfish is actually a correct answer. I like that a lot of you thought hedgehog. You're like, spikes? Yes. But no, they're related to those sea creatures, sea urchins, sand dollar, starfish, all the same group together, a few other things. Let's see what that does to our leaderboard. Speedy Chicken keeps the lead with our final question before we go to Ms. LeBlanc's class, grade 6s, for our first question in a minute. Some of the greatest kelp forests on Earth exist off the coast of where? Florida, Brazil, British Columbia, or Saskatchewan? For our American friends, it's not Saskatchewan, in case you have no idea where that is. That's like the Iowa of Canada. Here you are. It's nice when we have an international audience. The answer is British Columbia. So we talk to some of the coolest divers in the world regularly on this program, and they say that the best place to dive pretty much on planet Earth is the BC kelp forest. It's a very special part of the world. I hope all our Canadians especially get the chance to go there someday. Majestic Ant is third. Second, Speedy Chicken. Oh, taking over at the lead at the end. And first, for all the marbles, drum roll please, is Golden Griffin. Well, if you are any of those folks, let us know who you are. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. And as I said, we're going to dive in with questions. So Miss LeBlanc's class, if you want to unmute your mic and come on in, I'll come to you first. Miss Stevens, if you want to type yours in the chat, because I think your audio might still not be working, please feel free to do that. And everyone compile your questions so we can take more later as well. But Miss LeBlanc, hello, grade sixes. Welcome in. Come share a question with us. Unmute. It's more fun that way, I swear. It's better. I know. I'm excited too.
I'm loving the energy.
I want to hear from you with a question. There we are. Oh, it's not working.
Aww.
Good luck. Play around with it. And if you get it working, I'll see. And you can always type in the chat. Type in the chat and I'll share it along. Miss Barajas, you're our first teacher that guaranteed has a good mic. So I'm going to come to you. Hello, Oxnard. Hi. Hello, guys.
So basically, can a sea urchin finish all the kelp if all the CRs are gone in a whole week?
Ooh.
Wow, that is a great question. So sea urchins, they multiply really, really fast. And what they're going to do is they're going to eat through the bottom of the stem. So remember I was talking about that hold fast that holds onto rocks at the bottom of the ocean? That's what they're going to bite through. So definitely sea urchins grow really, really fast, really, really quickly. And they take over really fast too. I'm not sure how much time exactly it would take for them to wipe out an entire kelp forest, but they're definitely capable of doing it if they're not managed properly.
Yeah, I'm going to try and find a great video on a BBC series called Blue Planet, all about urchins eating a kelp forest. It is wild to see that sped up, as they're slow creatures as we saw them walking, but it's one of the coolest things in nature. It's not something you want to see, but it can certainly happen and have a pretty big impact. So great first question, guys. All right, Parkland Marine, I know you guys are a little bit older, so if you have a question, let me know in the chat, and then I'll just come to you live to take it. But we'll go to Avoca West. Grade threes, come on in, guys, and take us away in Glenview.
Victoria, come on up. Okay, we've got Victoria here. Victoria, come on up, and you look in here so they can see your face. There you go.
Where does the kelp go when it disappears?
Ooh, where does the kelp go disappear? So kelp will likely wash up onto shore and then it'll probably just kind of like rot there. It's really, really long. Some kelp can grow to be over 170 feet. So imagine these really, really long strands. They'll probably just wash away with the ocean. Sometimes they don't normally sink because they have these little bulbs that can kind of keep them afloat. But yeah, they'll probably wash away with the current, or they'll end up on shore and create a lot of waste and rot along our shorelines as well.
You can see in the virtual background behind Mala these huge floats filled with air. So that keeps kelp, and when they get attacked at the bottom, they tend to float up. I've been on a beach with all sorts of kelp washed up. It's pretty wild to see. It's almost like a forest, but with no tree trunk, like no wood, but a forest on the beach. So it's a really surreal kind of thing to witness, and it's a very cool question, guys. All right, help environmental leaders. Mr. Van Pleasure's class, come on in. If you have a question for us, go for it and take us away. Hey.
What country is doing the best job of preserving kelp forests?
Ooh, that's an amazing question. So I know, as Jesse mentioned, one of the most popular dive sites and areas for kelp to grow and kelp restoration efforts right now is in British Columbia. So it's definitely Canada. Canada's doing a really, really good job regenerating these ecosystems. And I would say Chile is doing an amazing job as well. There's a lot of kelp restoration projects going on there as well.
I would say it's actually kelp lucky in this fashion that a lot of the main kelp forests in the world are in the Eastern Pacific. So Chile, up the coast of North America, California, BC, and they're all countries that have really invested billions of dollars lately in sort of rehabilitating environments, bringing back things, ecosystems that were dead, saving species. So kelp actually has a really strong future. It's also something that, as Mala said, has been used in all sorts of products. So when you have something that has direct economic benefit to mankind, people tend to invest more in preserving the ecosystem. It's a bad reason for doing it, but it is a very effective reason for doing it. So
if they're not going to do it for the earth, they will do it for the money. So
gotta
invest in it one way.
IMESD virtual learners, if you want to flick on your mic and come on in, I can come to you in a second. We're going to have to miss Christy's class now, so unmute, come on in, and then we'll take a few from our online crew as well. Hey, Miss Christy, welcome in. Hey. Oh, you're good, but unmute. In fact, all our teachers unmute. You're in the background. We can't hear you anyway. Oh, your microphone's not working. No one's microphone's working. Well, hello, and so nice to see you. Share your question in the chat. Miss Stevens, Miss LeBlanc, you think you got it working? Let's see. We can try. We can try.
Hey. How did sea otters repopulate?
Cool question.
Amazing question. This is one of my favorite recovery stories. So as I mentioned earlier, in case you missed it, sea otters in British Columbia were unfortunately hunted to extinction. Their pelts are very, very warm. They're very, very popular. So for that reason, people were hunting them and they disappeared. But people brought in sea otters from other areas and they helped them repopulate in that area. And now they're a protected species. So it's illegal to hunt them. We can't hurt them anymore. We have to leave them alone and have to let them do what they need to do in that environment. So it just goes to show that even though something might be removed from a certain area, if we want to and we try super hard, we can bring it back. We just need to make sure that we're doing the work and we're really advocating for these organisms as well.
Yeah. Fantastic question. You guys have been awesome. Parkland Marine, I will come and check in with you guys. So Victoria, if you guys want a question, you're welcome to come on up. Hey guys.
So, what is the reproduction of bull kelp specifically?
Ooh, that is such a specific question. Unfortunately, I don't know. But they do grow very, very fast. As I mentioned, over a foot a day. Bull kelp is very different from other ones. It's one of our larger pieces of kelp, so it's going to need very specific conditions. But I do know Oceanwise has been successful in growing bull kelp. But I'm not sure how long it actually takes for the reproduction to take place.
So I was just going to say, we used to have it at the aquarium too. It's used in aquaria a lot when you do have live kelp. Most aquaria don't have live kelp, because it actually goes so fast that it takes over the tank. So you have to have divers that are cutting it like every single day. Otherwise, it just inundates the ecosystem. Monterey Bay Aquarium has it, and it's about 10 inches a day it grows. So again, you start off, we talked about this in our earlier program too. If you have 2 sticks and a rope, you can grow kelp. If you have something that hold fast can attach to, like a rock and the baby kelp that we highlighted earlier, you can grow kelp. So it really depends on the place that you're trying to put it. Make sure that the ecosystem is not going to be inundated by it. Make sure there's not already an intact ecosystem there that you're going to sort of smother with the kelp forest. Really neat question. Again, Monterey Bay Aquarium seems to have a really good amount of stuff on that. So if you want to check that out, it's a neat resource for anyone and just down the coast in California. Health environmental leaders, I might go to you for one more and then we'll wrap up from there. I do want to note for all our classes, please email us more questions, sea otters, urchins, kelp, anything. Mal will get us the answers by tomorrow, hopefully. And if she's not unwell, we'll save you and then you can answer more questions. But Mr. Pleasure, come on in and wrap us up. Hey.
How has pollution and deforestation worsened over time, and how's it affected climate change?
Ooh, that's an amazing question. So pollution and climate change are 2 very big factors in destroying kelp forests. So as I mentioned, kelp needs very specific conditions like any other animal, any other plant or organism needs in order to survive. So it needs colder water, it needs certain types of minerals, it needs exposure to sunlight. You can imagine with climate change and sea temperatures increasing, the water might get too warm for kelp to survive, right? Or with really, really bad storms, we're hurting and destroying a lot of kelp as well. Even things like overfishing are really, really affecting seaweed by, catching too many keystone species. The removal of sea otters, for example, is a great example. But getting rid of, or catching too many fish to consume and not giving them the correct amount of time to repopulate, that can have really, really big impacts on that ecosystem as well. So climate change can affect water temperature and weather patterns, which can damage and hurt kelp. And pollution can make water too toxic for any fish or kelp to survive. So those 2 things are very, very big factors, if not the leading ones in what's harming kelp right now.
So I've got 2 books/online resources to really recommend as well. OceanWise has an incredible website, of course. I keep highlighting ocean.org to learn more. I'm going to share with all of you Vincent's program from earlier so you can learn about some of the amazing things we're doing with kelp to bring it back around the world. But Regeneration and Drawdown are 2 incredible reads with not just stories on kelp, reforestation, and seaforestation in general, but some really awesome solutions that pretty much anyone can follow around the world on anything you might want to know on climate change, habitat reintroduction, anything else. So I'll share those with all our teachers, high schoolers especially. There's things you guys can do like right now. So if you're keen on helping the planet in any way or learning more, there's so many resources out there to get you excited and informed. So with that, time flies when you're having fun. Share more questions with us. Mala, is there any last message you want to leave us with before we bring in our classes to say thank you and farewell?
Yes, absolutely. On the theme of kelp, I want to emphasize how easy it is for all of us to be part in restoring kelp and really helping the ocean by engaging with kelp. Kelp is responsible for absorbing 20 times more carbon dioxide than, some land forests. So by just doing something as simple as eating more seaweed or eating more sea urchins, you can be part of restoring kelp around the world. So do what you can, raise your voice, keep talking about it, and I'm sure that we will see the change in the ocean and we can bring these ecosystems back. Thank you all so much.
Can't leave you with a more hopeful and more optimistic message than that. Thank you so much again, Mala. And as you know what we do to wrap up every broadcast, I'm going to bring in all you classes to say thank you and farewell with me. So Miss LeBlanc's class, Miss Barras, Parkland Marine, Environmental Leaders, thank you so much, everyone. And you guys